Hello, my name is Elizabeth. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm really glad you're here. Today I have a bit of a nuanced list for you. This is a list of books that I was told were going to be very, very disturbing, like really upsetting, and they weren't, to me. Now, before we get into this, I'd like to make a quick point about context. So you know how if you go to see a movie and you have been waiting for it because you've been told that, 1 out of 10, it's a 12 and it's so great and you're so excited and you go in and you watch it and it's a 7. You're like, ugh, that was really disappointing. It was still a 7. That's a pretty good entertaining movie, but you were expecting an over 10. So in the same way that if you go into a movie and you're expecting no more than a 3, and you end up with a 7, you're like super excited and you think it's it's actually amazing, pretty good movie, right? It's all about context. So while there may be books that I would consider more disturbing than these, or less disturbing than these, less disturbing than these, I didn't go into those expecting it to be disturbing. Like I went in expecting these to be hard to read in some way or another, and they just didn't quite get me there. Not to say that they aren't good books. They're great. I mean, I got through all of them, so that says something, because I will put down a book if I'm not enjoying it. So I definitely read all of these, finished all of these, and I feel like I can recommend all of these. These are not ones I'm telling you are not good. They just weren't quite as horrifying and devastating as the kind of books I was looking for when I went to read these books. So, I hope that's enough explanation as to why, while these are still upsetting books, but usually, well, I'll get into individually why. But just like my last one, this is in alphabetical order because I couldn't tell you which one is more or less or more or what have you. So, this is just a list of the books that I was like, I closed it and I was like, oh, where was the traumatizing part? And remember, trauma is different for everyone. So someone who finds one of these books traumatic is probably someone who's experienced something that I haven't. So again, all context, but I thought it would be an interesting list of books. Again, I absolutely recommend all of these books. Having said all of that, want to join me for the ride? Let's go. Okay. My first book on this list is by J.G. Ballard, and it is called The Concrete Island. Now, The Concrete Island is, it's kind of neat. So a man is driving down the freeway in his, I believe it's a Jaguar. I'm not a car person, but I'm pretty sure it was a Jaguar. And well-to-do guy. And he somehow swerves or takes a turn too tight or something, and he ends up flying off of the freeway and landing in this space between the different freeways. Like think of a crazy interchange with lots of different highways going, and this is just there's a little bit of grass, a little bit of shrubbery, but it's mostly concrete, and it's just a space underneath a freeway and above a freeway and next to a freeway and next to a freeway. And when he gets, he lands in this area, he gets himself out of his car, which has been destroyed, and tries to climb up the side to try to get someone's attention, and nobody sees him. And he can't figure out how to climb out of this thing. So all of a sudden, he is all alone, isolated, in the middle of the city, on a concrete island. Now, that sounds really creepy, right? Really, that's a creepy idea. And while it definitely has some things to say about society and those who live outside of society and why they live outside of society, and when we worry about people and when we don't worry about people, I thought it kind of had some cool things to say. And the the main character, after a few days of just trying to figure out what is going on and where is he stuck, and trying to figure out how to, get some liquid into himself, some water. He starts considering the radiator in his car that has water in it, and he finally meets two people. So after a few days of it just being like, how is he ever going to survive this? All of a sudden there are other people, and they're able to tend to his wounds and feed him and talk to him and confuse things even more. And I thought that was really neat. The every time he would say, like, well, did you call the doctor? And they'd be like, oh yeah, help is coming. That's like all they tell him. It was neat. I liked, I liked the ending. That also had a lot to say. So, Concrete Island by J.G. Ballard. It was good. Not devastating, not break my face, but the next one is by Brad Manuel, who is the author of one of my all-time favorite books, The Last Tribe. This is dark. So, dark. How do I describe dark? So, dark is about a future dystopian world where it rains nonstop. There is 100% cloud coverage. You cannot see the sun. You will not see the sun. And it just rains all the time. And the rain is sort of an acid rain. Like, it hurts when it hits it might hurt when it hits your skin. It's definitely going to burn if it gets in your eyes. So this society has figured out how to transverse their community without really having to see. Everyone has to wear these rain shields, right, that completely cover their eyes so that they don't get this terrible acid rain into their eyes. And so they have a system of ropes. So you just sort of hold on to the rope and keep walking until it's your turn to, you're where you need to be or what have you, but you follow the rope, you hold the rope. So you don't have to look. And again, that is creepy. To live in a world where, and also it's dystopia, and we are just surviving kind of story. So if you can't work, you don't eat. And the food that they're eating is very like insect and rodent heavy. And everybody you get your assignment, your requirement, whatever it is, the work that you have to do, and that's what you're going to do for the rest of your life. And if you don't do it, you won't eat, and then you won't be around. And within this community that they've explained to us, there is sort of a romantic triangle, like a lover's triangle, but not really, because it's not really, because there's a happy couple. And there's a guy who's in love with the girl who's not part of the couple. It's not really a triangle problem. Anyway, and then that's where the story goes. And while some pretty terrible things happen and some really upsetting things happen, it still wasn't like the most devastating thing ever. Dark by Brad Manuel. I liked it. It just wasn't like break my heart, which is great. Every once in a while, it's good to read a book that doesn't break your heart. Actually, it's good to do that more than every once in a while. Okay, the next one on my list is it's by J.G. Ballard, who wrote The Concrete Island. It's called High Rise. Now, High Rise is this one was really neat. This is really neat. And I hear there's a movie. I might need to check it out. So it's a fully self-contained high rise that has everything in it that you need, so that you don't really have to leave. I mean, people leave to go to work, right? They leave in the morning, they go to work, they come home, but they don't have to join a gym. They don't have to stop at a grocery store. They don't, there's a grocery store in the building. There's a gym in the building. There are pools in the building. There are there's schools in the building for the students. You really don't have to leave this high rise. And this takes place, it was written in the 1970s. So it's like a class system. So like the first 10 floors are like lower class, and then the top like 5 or 6 are upper class, and everyone else is middle class. And basically a war sort of breaks out between these different classes, and the elevators get like commandeered by whichever area has them, and so they will take them where they want to go and go back up to theirs and not stop on your floor so that you can't get anywhere. And the less and less food and as time goes by, there's less and less food at the grocery store until eventually it closes, and people are just, they're people are turning feral. Like, it's just a breakdown of society and decency and just morals and ethics, and it just delves into complete chaos. And the parts that were really, really, really upsetting for me, trigger warning, was when violence or things like that were done to animals. There are pet dogs in this, and I really hate what they did to the pet dogs. It was a neat ending. I definitely like the ending. Sometimes I don't like endings, but it was a neat ending. And it was a fun ride. It really was. It was a fun ride, but it wasn't like, again, I'm like, oh yeah, okay. Yeah, this, the society breaking down is one of those scary things in this world. And it was kind of neat having it all within one building. It was a cool concept. Okay, my next one on here is by Logan Ryan Smith, and it is called My Eyes Are Black Holes. Now, this book reminded me of The Bell Jar, or I Never Promised You a Rose Garden. It's really a walk through the mind of somebody who is not in touch with reality. And I have no idea what parts of this book actually happened or were hallucinations. I don't know which parts of this book were like real. Like, our main character doesn't really open his eyes, or because he thinks they're black holes and they'll destroy everyone around him. He doesn't really open his eyes, and he never leaves the house that he's in. And sometimes he'll go 3-4 weeks without leaving a certain room. And again, he's not opening his eyes. He's just listening, and he'll hear weird conversations. Now, you don't know if those people are actually in the house. Those conversations are actually happening, or it was very neat. I loved The Bell Jar, and I loved, Never Promised You a Rose Garden. And this was very interesting too, in that same way of just what is real and what is not. And this guy is, but I felt like there could have been a clearer story, but at the same time, the fact that it wasn't a clear story just fed that much better into the idea that this was from the mind of somebody who has lost complete touch with reality. So I thought it was neat. I really did. My eyes are black holes. But there weren't times when I was like, how could this be? Who could write that? It was a good book. Okay, the next one on my list is by Jasper DeWitt, and it's called The Patient. Now, this one is written from the point of view of a psychiatrist who is writing a blog, which is kind of cool because, each chapter is sort of like the beginning of a new blog. So he'll be like, thanks for all of the reactions, everyone. I really appreciate it. Or I know after reading that last one, a lot of you are no longer on my side. Or, it was just, there was that interaction with the audience that was really kind of neat, that I really liked. But so this psychiatrist who works in a mental institution where people are, locked up, there is a patient that nobody is really allowed to interact with. There is one nurse that can give him certain meds. There's one orderly that can give him certain other meds. And otherwise, doctors don't go in there. There aren't other roommates. We keep people away from this guy. He's not to be trusted. He's not okay, you know. And this hotshot doctor decides that he is going to figure out what's going on with this guy, and he's going to, you know, cure him or figure out what's going on with him or figure out why everyone is treating him so disrespectfully and why aren't we, you know, like, how are we supposed to cure someone if we won't even go into the same room with them and like have a conversation with them? So, and it's all about who that patient is and the way that he manipulates and the way I don't want to give too much away. It was really neat. It was a page turner. I did not stop reading. I was like, ooh, what's happening here? But you know, the end was sort of like, ooh, which is neat, but it's not the most disturbing thing I've ever read. And I've read really disturbing things, so remember that. Keep in mind that things can still be pretty disturbing for me not to find them disturbing, if that makes any sense at all. Anyway, so the next one on my list is by Harlan Coban, and it is Runaway. Now, this book is about... So there's a businessman, and he's in New York City, and he's walking down the street, and I think he goes through Central Park, maybe he goes by Strawberry Fields or something, and there are a couple of kids sort of busking and begging for money. So busking is when you play music or entertain on the street and then ask people to give you change or money. And when he looks at this teenage girl, he realizes, oh my God, that's my daughter who ran away. And that's where it starts. And then it is a very cool story. Harlan Coban writes really, really, really neat stories that like are so much fun to follow and try to follow and figure out where it's going. But the thing about, after I read a bunch of Harlan Coban stuff, I realized that once the whole story is over and you've got all the pieces, you know, the whole tapestry is complete, is filled in, right? You realize that your characters, the people that you actually cared about in this story, like if this is the tapestry, they were in this part of the story. Get over here this little bit. Like the rest of the story almost had nothing to do with our main people, but you don't sort of realize it until you can step away. And I think that's what makes it a little less disturbing, because the worst things don't really happen to our people, if that makes any sense. The next book on my list is by Kealan, I believe, Patrick Burke, and it is called Sour Candy. Sour Candy. This one was... So, our main character is a middle-aged, little younger probably than middle-aged man who has a wife, and his ex-wife or ex-girlfriend, I can't remember if they were married first or not, broke up because he didn't want children. And so now he's with this other girlfriend or wife. He goes to a grocery store, and there's a child screaming completely out of control. And he's just like, oh, I feel bad for that poor woman. And it's just sort of a moment, and what he witnesses, no big deal. He leaves. So he's in a car accident with this woman and her child. And everyone thinks that this child is his. This child's calling him daddy. He gets home. There's pictures of the child on all of the walls. The two of them playing together. His wife is now his ex-wife because she told him she didn't want children. I mean, that's why they got together. And this child, it's a little Elysium-like, if you saw that movie. The child is strange and he's way off, and he's just slightly just different and weird, and he keeps saying, no, I've been with you forever, Daddy. But of course, we know that that's not true. But this man's entire world has changed. Like, he has a different car. He has different things on his walls. You know, like, it's just what is happening. And this boy says that he's hungry, and he goes to his cupboards to find some food, and there's just sour candy. And that's the only thing that this boy will eat. And it is the only thing that he is allowed to eat. And it makes him sicker and sicker and weaker and weaker. And it's a neat book. I really liked it. It just wasn't completely devastating. But it was neat. It was really neat. And yeah, I liked it. I thought it was a neat sci-fi story. And it wasn't very long, if I remember correctly. It was like, it might have taken me like 3 or 4 hours to read. So, okay. Oh, The Storyteller of Pain by Loren Mallory. Molly? Sorry. The worst with names. Storyteller of Pain. Oh, this is a really good story. I loved this. The reason that it is not on my devastating and disturbing list is because there's the most amazing, cool, awesome love story that goes on with it. And it's sort of because of that love story that, because of that love that our characters, managed to do so well in the story. It's really neat. But we have a psychiatrist. She's one of those like genius people. She's only 24 and she's the head of psychiatry at this asylum because she graduated from college when she was 20. She graduated from high school when she was 14. You know, she's one of those genius people. And there is a nighttime guard who I think maybe has a little crush on her. And the two of them end up having to take on I'm just going to say it, the demons in this asylum. There are actual demons. So, like, demon fights. Like, they completely change shape and form right in front of them. They are sadistic and horrible. It's definitely sci-fi. I mean, it's cute because at the beginning it's just sort of this normal story, and then like all of a sudden there are demons, and our two main characters have to fight against them, and figure out how. And it's such a cool story. It's very neat. I thought over and over again, I was like, there's no way they're gonna get out of this. There's no way they're gonna get out of this. This is terrible. What's gonna happen? And I kept thinking, like, if you don't let these two people be together by the end, I'm going to be so mad. But I really liked it. But the love story was way too beautiful for me to put it into a devastating category of a book. So, okay, so the last one on my list, yes, it's a list of 9. That's how many there are. What do you want from me? So, number 9 is by Agustina. Oh, gosh. Bazterrica, maybe? And it's called Tender is the Flesh. Now, I definitely expected this book to end up on my most disturbing list. The basic concept of it is that the world has changed because there's a virus. And it's not infecting humans, it's infecting animals. So all the animals on the planet act a lot more aggressively towards us. And if we try to eat their meat, it kills us. So, we can't eat cows or pigs or chickens so if we want to eat meat, if human beings want to consume meat, there is only one other option, and that is cannibalism. It's the only meat that's not tainted that we can still eat. Okay. So our main character is, he started out as an inspector, and he's part of the meat industry. So, we meet a butcher, we meet, someone who raises the heads. They call them heads, like heads of cattle, but they're human beings. So they take out their vocal cords when they're really little so that they can't communicate. And then so we just keep them as less. And, they're branded and, all these things. And there's all these rules. You can't, you're not allowed to play with your food. Like in an sex way. You're really not allowed to do that. And so at one point, our main character is gifted a head, a female head. And he's really aggravated and he doesn't know what to do with her. And then he finally figures out what to do with her, and it's not necessarily appropriate. And it's just, and this man is trying to figure out like this world, and, you know, he's part of this world, but he's sort of disgusted by this world. And the reason that I can't put it on this is one of the most disturbing books I've ever read list is that everything that happened, everything that was part of this new society made perfect sense. Like, there was nothing that made me go, like, why would that? Oh, that's so, like, yeah, that's how this would have to be if this was the world. So, like, there's this whole part about how we deal with our dead. You know, not our dead heads, but dead humans. How do we make sure that humans that are not supposed to be consumed aren't consumed? So there's this whole, spoiler warning, there's this whole part with how all funerals end with the person being taken out of the casket they're in, being put into a glass casket, so their dead bodies, and at least one next of kin has to watch that coffin, that glass coffin with the dead body of their loved one, go into the crematorium and light on fire. And that's the only way that you can be sure that no one is consuming the meat of your loved one. And yeah, that's creepy, but like, yeah, that's how it would have to be. Like, that makes logical sense to me. And since everything sort of made logical sense to me, it wasn't as disturbing. I had also read and seen some reviews that were like, oh, the ending is so crazy and it just rips the floor out from under you. The ending came and I was like, well, yeah, how else would that have gone? Now, sometimes I see through stories in ways that other people don't. And that may be that for me, it was just like, well, yeah, what? I don't see how it could have gone any other way. But, you know, for some people, it might not be like that. But I was like, where is this interesting, exciting ending? This is just what I expected. So while it's definitely upsetting and like some of the details of the, you know, the butchers and whatnot is, I mean, it's human beings, and that's really disturbing and creepy. But like I said, it just made logical sense. Not that it wasn't great. It was good. I read the whole thing. I don't know if I can call it great. I read the whole thing. I did find it a little tedious at parts. I think because all of it made logical sense to me. So, but I did read the whole thing, and that means that I definitely enjoyed it in some way or another. Also, I really wanted to know what the ending was. And I was glad I knew what the ending was, and that it, you know, but it's still, I knew it was coming. Like, not that I knew it was coming. Like, once it happened, it was like, oh, well, yeah. If it had gone any other way, then I would have been like, oh my God. So, anyway. So this is my list of 9 novels that I was expecting to be devastated by and wasn't. So, and I recommend these books, and I think that they're all pretty great. They just aren't quite as to me. But again, they may be to you. So, make sure if you're going to take any of these books on that you know that you're in the headspace to handle it. And do me a favor and be nice to each other and be nice to yourself. And I'll see you next time. Bye.